So in today's video, I am going to be going over step by step the process of making your own paper at home using other recycled paper. So this is the first time that I myself have ever made paper at home before. So there will obviously be lots of different paper sounds, sort of cutting and ripping the paper, some water sounds, and lots of other various sounds with the paper. So I hope that you enjoy. So the first thing that we need to do is to collect all of our recycled paper that we'd like to include in our newly made paper. You can use lots of different kinds of paper, different colors, different makeups of the paper. You can use different thickness of paper. So what I have here is a collection of papers that I would normally just recycle. Different coloring pages and little homework or classwork assignments brought home by my kids. And so what we need to do is to break up this paper into small pieces, and there are different ways that you can do that. So I thought it was sort of easier just to tear the pieces with my hands, but I also brought some scissors. So you'd likely want to cut up the pieces into pretty small pieces, probably smaller than an inch squared. These pieces that I am breaking up here are a little larger than what would be desired. You might also choose to use a shredder to really break up these pieces into very, very small pieces. So here I thought that just tearing the pages up was much easier. And so I decided to use just this white paper, and I believe the brown paper was some sort of brown paper bag that came in some sort of delivery that I received. So I was trying to make this paper into a very light brown color. That's why I chose to use brown and white. But it's nice to think about all of the different options when using different different colors of paper. You can sort of make it your own. And so here what I have is just a bucket of water. And what I'm going to use this for is soaking all of the torn up paper. And it will help to soften up the paper. Make it sort of soggy. And so I'm just placing all of the torn up paper into the water, and it will soak. You could soak it for a few hours. I'm going to let it soak at least overnight. And so you see I have sort of a lot of paper here. So this amount of paper will make, I'm not sure exactly how many sheets of paper, but you could make a small notebook's worth, depending on the size of the paper that you make. And so I'll just continue letting all this paper soften and soak for a while, and then we'll be back. So just kind of mixing it up here and just kind of dispersing all of the different colors around, mixing it up. Alright, so here the paper has been soaking for one full day, and you can see it just looks like wet paper. But now what we need to do is blend all of this paper up, because we need to make sort of just like a mushy pulp of paper here. So I'm using a blender, and I will just keep this blender for this purpose from now on. This is an old blender, and it's not recommended to use it for food after putting all this paper in there. And so I may have added a bit too much paper. You want to have sort of a lot of water in with all of the chunks of paper to make it a nice sort of soupy consistency, like a very thin consistency. So you don't want to have too much paper compared to the amount of water. And so now I have decided to move the paper out of that tub because I'm going to use that plastic tub when we need to pull our sheets of paper. It was the only tub that I had. Just kind of pulse it to make sure it's not too thick for the blender. But you can see it does blend up pretty easily. It's becoming just sort of a slushy consistency there. So I'll just continue to pulse the blender until I feel it's at a good consistency. And so you see here, it's all done. I do think that this consistency is a bit thick. So now I am just pouring my pulp of paper back into the plastic tub. And I have added a little more water, and I continued on with blending up some more of the paper. So we have a lot to work with here. And I also need a sponge at this point. It's just an extra sponge that I happen to have. And we also need this little frame here. This is called a mold and decal, if I am saying it right. So these come in different types. Basically, it is just a wooden frame with screen material on one side, and the other side with just the wooden frame. This one has the hinges to keep the two pieces aligned. I also need some absorbent towels. You can use different kinds, whatever you'd like. Just bath towels or microfiber towels. You can even use paper towels like I have here. So I just have some layers here to absorb some of the liquid. Just spreading it out nice and flat. Now this is the part where we make our paper. So with this type of mold and decal, we need to keep the frames together, and at about a 45-degree angle we will sort of scoop up some of that pulp and let it settle onto the screen, and letting the water drip out from the bottom. So now we just want to let as much water as we can drip out. looks, from what I know now, this was a little too much pulp added to the screen there. So now we're going to open up the frame, or you could just remove the top one if that's the type of frame that you have. And we're going to flip our piece of paper over onto our towel. And now we need our sponge. And I'm just going to use the sponge to soak up any extra water and just sort of helps to let the paper kind of get removed from the screen. So we just keep soaking up whatever we can, squeezing out the extra. Sort of push down on the paper, soaking up whatever we can. You could also put another towel on under the sponge to also soak up some more water as you press with the sponge. So I'll just continue on trying to soak up whatever I can. Alright, so now we will try to peel away that frame, leaving the wet piece of paper on the towel. See, it comes off pretty easily. So this was the first sheet that was made. So it's a little thicker than I had wanted. But we are going to place some more towels over top to help to soak up some more of the water and to press this sheet, which is the next step. So I placed a bunch more towels, and just going to find something heavy to place on top. You can use lots of different things. You could even get some concrete stones or some pieces of wood. I have this heavy book here, and I chose this because it has a nice flat surface. So this, I am not sure that it is heavy enough, but we'll try it. So now here you can see that the paper towels I was using have a little bit of a imprint on them, so not sure if that will affect the paper. But you can see I have added more sheets of paper that I made, and I have lots of layers of towels and paper towels, and I'm just letting them sit for a while and try to soak up all of the water. So I ended up trying to add a bit more water to the tub to sort of thin it out a little. I'm trying to make some very thin sheets of paper. So I had to sort of just play around with it a little, and see, that's a very, very thick piece. But we'll keep it. So again, just pushing it down and soaking up the water with a sponge. Also just trying to sort of flatten it out a little. I think I went a little overboard with the sponge just because it was fun to do. And so now I'm going to peel away the frame, pushing down to release the paper. And you see it doesn't look really like chunky like it looked while it was in the frame. So I'm placing this paper towel over top, so you can layer some different sheets all together and try to flatten them all in one big pile. So I decided, why not put the heavy tub of water right on top, and just cover it so nothing falls into the water. And why not just place the book back on top for a little extra weight. Alright, so here are a few more pieces that I made. I was really trying to figure out how to make the pieces very thin and also softer like paper. So it just took it's almost see-through in some spots. So, and here I have a paper towel that is more smooth. There's no design imprinted on the towel. I'm not sure how much of a difference that will make, but okay, so they're all still pretty wet under there. See, I have a bunch of different sheets. Okay. So here we have just a flat board. So this is where we can dry the paper. We don't actually have to dry it ourselves, though I think you could use a hair dryer or something to help it along if you're in a rush. But these sheets of paper dried very, very quickly. So they are all in different stages of drying. And you can use like maybe a piece of wood or table or whatever you'd like to set the sheets out to dry. So these ones have already pretty much dried. These ones are pretty thin, but they're a little hard. So I'm just going to lay them out. This one is pretty thick. I really wanted to see if I could soften these sheets up a little, but I thought the best way was to just make them thinner in the first place. I think that's the key. So this one's very thick. Not very flexible at all. It's like very, very thin cardboard. This one over here is a piece that my daughter had made. You can see it's very colorful. She used different colors of paper and didn't shred all of the pieces up all the way, so you can see little specks of color in there. But hers turned out really nice and sort of flexible and thin. This one here is one that I think came out really good. It's very much like paper, very thin and soft. This is one of the later sheets of paper that I made. So I love that. It has the rough edges there. I think this is exactly what I was going for. But we'll just lay them all out here and let them dry all the way. So I can put these sheets to the side and make room for the other sheets that I made. And we'll leave this one to dry. So now we'll place the other sheets onto the board. They were still pretty wet. So let's see, here's the first one. This one came off pretty easily, except it was so very thin that there were actually some holes in the paper, but I didn't mind that. I had to be very careful this part. So just trying to get it to stick to the board before peeling the paper away. I had to be very careful. Some of these were really, really thin, but they did come together pretty nicely. Okay, so I can just continue on. I think I have maybe about 5 or 6 more sheets that I made. And I believe that all of them were very thin, like these here, so we'll have a look at them after. Alright, so here are all of those second batch of papers. They're all dry. I just let them sort of crinkle up the way they wanted to. This one is really, really nice. There's not really any holes, but it's still very thin and delicate and soft. This one is the one that got the hole in it when I was taking it off with the paper towel. It's very, very thin. There's the first one. So now we can just sort of flip through all of them. This nice little stack of paper here. You can see the difference. Could make cute little notebook or something with this. There's the first one, I believe. It's very thick and a little too thick for a piece of paper. so nice. Could use it for something. I like the rough edges on this one. This one is a little thinner. And I like that it has these specks of unblended paper there. So you could do that purposefully, obviously. Let little things sort of mix their way into the paper. Actually, I think maybe this one might be the thickest one, or the next one. It's very rough. And this one again, that must be the first one that we made. It's very rough and very thick. So, it just does take some practice, but it didn't really take too long to figure out the best way to make the paper very thin. Just had to practice with the angle and how to pull up the frame out of the water. It's a nice colorful piece. Specks of newspaper and different kinds of and just all different colors put together there. And then we have all of the nice, very thin pieces of paper. This one wasn't a perfect square. I think this frame that I was using looks like a 5 by 7 inch. So you could, so of course the frames do come in different sizes. Now this one is really, really thin. That must be the thinnest one with all of the holes in it. I think it's pretty cool though. So I believe the rest are pretty much the same. All with the rough edges and I don't know yet what I'd like to do with all of this paper. I don't know, I'm not very creative in that way with little art projects. But I know it could be really cute for something. I will have to look online for some ideas. So now I'm just going to, of course, write with a pencil just to see how it sounds and how it writes and how it is to write on it. I wanted to use a pencil so that I could erase it if I wanted to use it for something else. So that one says thank. You. For. watching.